Hey, I'm Isaiah Aos.
And I'm Chris Aos.
And this is the Aos To Aos Podcast. How's it going? I'm Isaiah Aos.
And I'm Chris Aos.
This is the first episode of the Aos To Aos Podcast. It's going to be mostly based around things like business, finance, success. It's not going to really have a specific topic, but we're going to be working off those main ideas and really anything we're interested in. It's going to be kind of laid back, just two guys, different generations, father, son, and we're going to be just talking about what we're interested in. Cool.
It's one of those things that we do all the time, and it's kind of interesting how the different perspectives come up, on things like budgeting and finances and investing and starting your own business. It's just one of those things that we, society tells us that things should be one way, and truthfully, we're at a point in our society where we really have the opportunity to do things the way that we want to.
Yeah, the difference in society is like huge from when you were a kid to when I was a kid, especially with social media and stuff.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's the main part of this podcast is you were born in such a different generation than I was. And I mean, we're both here together and like we can do all these things together, but I think you have a different mindset than I do. Not necessarily a bad thing. I'm just saying we both have different mindsets for sure.
Absolutely. I was brought up in a mindset where, you went and you had a job and, you hopefully kept that job for 30 years or 40 years, where nowadays, if you keep a job for 2 or 3 years, you're kind of in the minority. A lot of people are going on the entrepreneurial path. Starting their own business or even having a day job, but, starting their business on the side. I think you've done a few of those things yourself. So
yeah, I did my online store. You might have that link below. I don't know. But yeah, I did my online store, did another YouTube channel. We're doing this, which is really cool. And I think we have a bunch of ideas that we might do together one day. So let me ask you this. Tell us about your background then.
Okay. Well, I'm 46 years old. Almost done raising the family now. So, I'm kind of getting into a different chapter in life. Business has always interested me, but, having a family, it's one of those things I always had to have a job to support the family. A business was always a second thought.
Right.
Back when I was growing up, I had the attitude of I was going to have fun until it was time to start a family. And then, once I started a family, it was time to buckle down and actually get a job and, do all the adult things. So, I spent most of my life working hard labor jobs. I, never really had the opportunity to, start an online business. That's a whole new world that's opened up over the last 10 years. It's the online business. Nowadays with Amazon and YouTube and all these different avenues you can go down, and we never had those opportunities. We had computers that had green screens and printing on them and stuff.
Right.
Nowadays you can do everything online. We do our banking online. We do our.
You can do it on your phone.
Yeah,
it makes it so much easier.
Exactly. We've gone to a point with society where we've gone from having, trying to get our TVs bigger and bigger and bigger. And now we have these little tiny smartphones that we can watch TV on and watch YouTube and do all of our banking. And they've become the center of our life. So it's a big difference from when I was growing up. Yeah.
And it's only going to get bigger from here because we're just changing so rapidly at this point. Phones and things like that are just getting better and better. Cameras are getting better and better. We're just going to change from this point on, and more opportunities are going to come up from this point on than there ever have been in the past, I think.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Cool. Well, we should hop into our first topic. The number one on my list over here is what society tells you versus what you should actually do. And I think this is a big one to start with because of the fact that in business, finance, success, everything like that, society is one way, and then there's a way that you really should go. I think I was looking at a picture on Instagram one time, and it was CEO's advice versus society's advice. And society's advice says go to school, get a job, work 40 years, die, like you were talking about. That was kind of your mindset back then. And then the CEO's mindset is go to school if you want to, read lots of books, retire at age 35, live. And, that's just a picture, but there's definitely a big difference in those two mindsets. And one of them kind of works better, and one of them works better for society. You know what I mean? And so I guess my question here is, what are some of the things that society tells you that you should do differently?
Well, I mean, it's one of the interesting things about my generation, like my father's generation, and a lot of baby boomers out there, we're still of the mentality of, telling us, we needed to go to school, we needed to get an education, we needed to go to college, which is important.
Yeah.
But my generation is one of the first generations where we were kind of opened up to the idea that, that we could start our own businesses or start something that wasn't traditional, that we don't have to be stuck in the same job forever. So, I guess I guess my generation doesn't really have a mantra. We don't have the, get a job, work 40 years till you die. We have kind of a mix. So, but the interesting thing about that is it puts your generation into a very interesting position. You guys are the first ones that really make your own future. You really have a chance to decide what you want to do. You don't have your parents on one side of it saying, you must do this. One of the situations that comes to mind is a couple of years ago when you started college and you were going to go for your business degree, and you started going and you just didn't feel like that was the path you wanted to take. So you left school and started working full time until you decided what you wanted to do. Now you're back in school, you've got a new career path. To me, that didn't worry me because, I know that in the past that there's a statistic out there that 80% of whoever, people that go into a certain line of work in college never end up, working permanently in that trade, or that, I don't know the word I'm looking for. They don't end up being what they went to school for. And that's kind of a sad statistic when you think about it. So, the fact that you were intelligent enough and had the freedom to actually choose what you wanted to do, that's pretty exciting for me as a parent.
Yeah. So yeah, I get what you mean there. Like, society tells you got to go to school, but my society kind of took a step back and realized what direction I want to go in, instead of just picking something. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. For sure.
It's one of those things that there's that old saying that says insanity. The definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results.
Yeah.
Your generation has the chance to change that, to do something different, to do it the right way. So
because generation after generation has been just getting jobs and trying to work their life for pensions and stuff like that, and it's not working. Mm-hmm. People can't get wealthy off just a W-2 job like that, like the ones that hard labor jobs and things like that. But yeah,
I still think that saving for retirement, I mean, we're going to talk about that a little bit more too, right. But I still think that saving for retirement is one of those things that hasn't changed over the generations, but it's just different in how you approach it. Instead of working for a job that has a good pension plan, now you have the opportunity to make more money and put it away yourself. Right. It's just a different path, right. But I still think it's important. So.
Yeah, for sure. And also the information that we get out of the newer technologies, like we were talking about before. The more information you get, you can make this amount of money. That wasn't really available to your generation either. So,
no, yeah. I mean, we live in the internet generation now, where all that information is at our fingertips. We can go online, we can go on our phone, we can, there's so many apps out there where we can choose our investments now, and we can actually, see what was kind of hidden before. Before, if you weren't a stockbroker, you really didn't have access to that stuff. So now you guys have that opportunity to actually be, self-directed in your investing, be able to choose things. You have the opportunity to do angel investing and invest in new startups and things like that. So it's pretty exciting.
Yeah, it is really exciting for sure. One other thing I was what society tells you versus what you should do is what you were talking about, retirement and stuff, saving, especially the society's just save as much as you can, and it's not necessarily the best thing. Saving everything you can, you should also put it into investments like angel investing, like what you said, or any other kind of investing. We're going to talk about that later, I think, or some other time. But yeah, you shouldn't just put all your money into a savings account that's going to get you 0.01% interest rate. You should also do the research to know how to invest, and then you should invest your money so it can grow and work for you, and then you can put that towards your retirement and things like that. So
yeah, absolutely. All right, so we kind of talked about what you should do versus what society thinks you should do.
Right.
So I think that kind of gives us an interesting segue into maybe talking about some of the different opportunities that we have nowadays, like online opportunities. We touched on investing. We touched on social media. I think that's kind of one of the most interesting things nowadays is social media. Yeah. The actual ability to make money off of being able to, talk with people out in the community, people in society, information sharing. Google started off as a search engine, and everyone obviously knows who Google is. Google has become an information gathering machine, and that's where they make their money. A lot of people looked at Google in the first place and says, how could this be a business, right? Yeah. But they've got to the point where they've turned it into one of the largest corporations in the world now.
Yeah.
So, it kind of gives you an insight into how, social media, how the internet could be used to make extra money.
Right, the new age of stuff. Yeah, that's another reason I left school in the first place, is because in my business classes, they didn't touch on social media marketing or anything like that. They might, in other ones, but they didn't touch on that at all, and that's huge in today's world. Mm-hmm. The traditional way of marketing doesn't really do much compared to social media marketing, in my opinion, because with my online business that we were talking about before, I can at the touch of a button reach thousands of people. With it's very cheap on Instagram and things like that. Touch of a button, reach thousands of people. You can't do that with any kind of physical thing. I can't make a flyer and reach thousands of people in the way that social media does, because you're plugged in and things like that. So it's so important, social media today, in businesses and stuff like that, and different things, making money and stuff like that. The angel investing thing that we were talking about, I learned about that through social media. I was just scrolling through my Instagram, and Google and Instagram and things like that, they knew I was interested in that, and so I ended up getting into that because I was just scrolling through my social media, and they were like, hey, here's an ad for angel investing, and so I started doing it. So that's really big, especially if you want to start something, social media marketing and then new technologies that we have and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. But yeah, so in your opinion, what's the best way to make money in today's age? A side hustle, name a side hustle and then name a good business and things like that.
See, here's where we run into the difference between, your generation and mine. Mm-hmm. For me, a side hustle it means I get a second job. That's my side hustle, so that's where I make my extra money.
Right.
So, that's a big difference. Your first thought when you think of a side hustle is, I'm going to start an online store.
Right.
So, so I don't know how I could really answer that question. I guess if I was to try and think like your generation, I would say, an Etsy store, something like that.
Could be,
there's a lot of people out there, Amazon stores, there's a lot of people out there that will pick one or two products and they will market them through social media,
right.
And sell them on some of these bigger platforms like Etsy or Amazon or even Facebook. Shopify is another one. Yeah.
Makes sense. Yep.
So I think those are pretty good side hustles, but I think that it's also good to remember that it also depends on your personality.
Right.
Not everyone is going to be, successful at that. I mean, I think that one of the side hustles from my generation was multi-level marketing.
Yeah.
Pyramid schemes, some people call them. I think in a lot of ways that they were a good engine for a lot of people to become successful.
Right.
But unfortunately, the way that they approach things was shady in some ways.
Right.
You were pressured into getting your friends and family involved. You were pressured into selling, and basically the people at the top were making all the money. You were pressured into buying learning materials, tapes, and books, and that part was not necessarily a bad thing because I was involved in quite a few of them,
right.
And I got a lot of benefits out of the books and the tapes.
Right.
Learned a lot of different things. Helped with my positive attitude. Really in some ways they were beneficial, but I had to come to the realization that I just wasn't built for it. I'm not a social person. I don't like to go out there and sell to people. I don't want to pressure my friends into buying from me because it's just not my thing.
Right.
That's the neat thing about social media marketing now. I mean, like you said, you press a button, you're marketing to 1,000 people out there, or 10,000 people, or 1 million people,
without shaking a hand.
Without shaking a hand. And like if a person's not interested, they just scroll by. But I mean, if they're interested, they click, they buy. It's a good form of passive income. You don't no high pressure, no forced sale. So but to actually pick something, I guess it's something that I'd have to put some thought into.
Yeah, for sure. Well, I can give you a few examples and things like that because, Ginny, if people who don't know, Ginny's our sister. She does a YouTube channel and things like that. But
we'll put a link below.
Cheap plug for her. But she did writing at one point. She did writing online. Mm-hmm. That's a good side hustle because it's online. And if you have a decent writing skill, I even looked into it at one point. I didn't really entertain it more than a few minutes, but if you have a decent writing skill, you can make some good money online, up to like $100,000 some people make writing online. So it's a good side hustle and things like that. And then what she does now online is she's a what is she? Assistant? Executive assistant, and she works for somebody online doing like books and things like that. And that's really cool because if you have these basic skills, you can. And it's not even just writing and like being an assistant. If you have some basic skills in some field, you can look online and like type in, these skills and things like that, and you can look for things. Like right now, I'm learning how to code. So once I get the basics down, I'm sure I could look for some basic coding jobs and things like that, and then I can make some money on that and things like that. And that's kind of what I'm looking to do and things like that. So side hustles, go online and type in like whatever you're good at. Writing, you can find some jobs in writing. If it's, you're good at being organized, you can be an assistant. If you know how to code, you can do all these things. And it goes even into script writing for YouTube channels and things like that. If they want to make movies, they'll hire a script writer who's just a ghostwriter who will write a nice script for them and things like that because they're not necessarily good enough to write. And, before it was I had to go to my friend and be like, you're good at writing, can you write me a script? Now it's like I can find the best writers on the internet and things like that, which is a really cool side hustle and things like that. I think there's so many side hustles though, to be honest with you, we wouldn't even be able to touch all of them.
That is a good side hustle, like Upwork and Fiverr, a couple websites that most people have probably heard about. And it's not only writing or being an executive assistant, there's also things like graphic design, social media marketing, writing articles, tweeting. I mean, somebody can make money by professionally tweeting, sending out, advertisements to people, writing reviews on products. I mean, there's a lot of websites out there where you can actually have products shipped to you. You write a review, you get to keep the product. Some of them actually pay you, a fee for doing that. So, there's a lot of different things like that. So I guess the point is that there is pretty much, in this generation, there's pretty much something for everyone out there.
Oh, yeah.
So,
and I think we missed the most obvious one, YouTube channel. YouTube channel is probably one of the most obvious one, and I think the best one because you don't need skills really. Like someone's gonna like your stuff eventually. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
If you put a camera in front of your face and you talk about the things that you like, someone's gonna like that, and someone's gonna like you. You don't even need to know how to write. You know what I mean? You just need to know how to click a button and speak and things like that. So I think YouTube is probably number one on the side hustle things. It does take a bit to get started, of course.
It does. I mean, it took us a bit to get started, but we just felt like this would be something that, is not only a side hustle, but it's also, we're hoping that, it's something that, will benefit other people, that they'll be able to kind of hear some of the stuff that we talk about and maybe be encouraged to go out and do their own side hustle or, and the other benefit is just, having time to, bounce our ideas off each other.
Yeah. So that's one thing. If anybody's thinking about doing that, the reason we came up with this podcast is just because we talk about this stuff and we were just like, why don't we record it and like maybe make some money off of it one day? Because we're gonna talk about it anyway. Why not just record it? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's a little awkward to talk in front of a camera at first, but it gets better. You know what I mean? I think we're rolling at this point.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, I think that was the best one. Start a podcast. You can definitely put it on like Spotify, SoundCloud, things like that.
Yeah.
Make a little bit of money off of it and stuff.
Patreon.
And, and it can go into other side hustles too. Like, if you make money,
we'll make coffee mugs.
Yeah,
maybe
coffee
t-shirts.
mugs. That'd be kind of cool. Yeah, we need to get our coffee mugs. Put them right here.
Yeah.
Cheap plug.
Yeah.
Oh. Yeah.
So my question for you is, with getting into a side hustle and getting started with this, when you run into problems or when you run into, setbacks, how do you keep yourself motivated?
So for me at least, a big part of it is listening to motivational speeches. That kind of sounds a little corny or whatever, but I love listening to motivational speeches. But there's also a bad side of that. You have to kind of take those with a grain of salt in a way. Because if you listen to a motivational speech, they'll be like, I wake up every morning at 5 a.m., I take a cold shower, and they're successful people. So thinking if you wake up at 5 a.m., take a cold shower, you're going to be a successful person, that doesn't necessarily work. You have to, those are tools, and they can work. I'm not saying they don't. But those are tools and things like that, so you have to take them with a grain of salt, and that can help motivate you. You're like, you see these people that are, waking up early, taking cold showers. It's not because those things make them successful. It's because those things hold them to their, convictions and things like that. So seeing that and being like, man, I wake up at 8 a.m. and I take warm showers and I sit on my butt for a little bit. It kind of makes you... I would say a little envious and jealous in a way, and that's fine at first, but then you got to put it to something. You got to be like, I should write that book I've always wanted to write, or I should start that podcast. But I gotta work on my business or work on this, that, or the other thing, because listening to people's success stories can help, but don't do it in the wrong way where it's either you're saying this will make me successful if I start doing this, or being envious to the point of, that guy's successful, what a jerk, I'm gonna go play Fortnite, you know what I mean? Or something like that. So motivational speeches do help me. Also eating healthy, exercising, that can help too. If you have a pull-up bar or even just push-ups, and everyone has a floor, just do push-ups for a little bit, and then you're kind of motivated. It kind of makes you want to eat healthier, and then when you eat healthier, you're like, oh, I got to work on that book, you know what I mean? Yeah, but what about you? What's some of the things you do?
Well, I think I just want to touch on a couple things that you said there. I think it's interesting, again, the difference between our generations. Like when I was coming up, the successful people, were doing that. They were going to college, they were getting up early, they were going to work, they were getting there early, they were staying late, they were putting in the extra hours. And, that's what a lot of the books that I read when I was younger were based on, 7 Habits of Highly Effective People and How to Win Friends and Influence People. It's interesting nowadays that we have so many videos that we can watch. Like we can go on YouTube and we can watch videos for hours and hours and get all these different perspectives, and it's in short bursts. And if we find something we like, if we find a video like a TED Talk or something like that, we can start going down that rabbit hole and following that person, or seeing who they're listening to and things like that, and we can actually we can find what works for us. It's
Right.
not like our college professor says, hey, you should read this book by Stephen Covey. We can go and find this information ourselves and find out the information that works for us. So for someone, like you hear about a lot of these internet entrepreneurs that they don't get up at 5 o'clock in the morning. They stay up till 5 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah.
They sleep in until 11 o'clock in the morning. And that's when they start their day. So there's a lot of differences in our generations and where we find our encouragement and stuff from. I agree, getting up and doing exercise, or but for some people that doesn't work.
Right.
For me, one of the things I like to do is when I get up in the morning, I usually have my coffee and I get dressed. Some people like to sit around. I find I don't get motivated till I get dressed. So you got to really find what works for you.
Yeah.
And it's not necessarily what society says it's going to be.
Exactly.
So that's kind of interesting. I think for me, I like to listen to audiobooks.
Yeah.
That's where I find a lot of people say they don't have time for books, so I don't have time for books. I don't have time to sit down. I get distracted easily. So, I do a lot of commuting, a lot of time in the car, so I'll get in the car and I'll listen to an audiobook. And, you download an app like, Audible or something like that, and you can find just about anything.
Right.
So, I think that it's a unique thing with the society nowadays that we can find encouragement in a lot of different places, and we can find what actually works for us.
For sure. So like there's kind of a theme there. We listen to successful people, me and you. So it's kind of a lot like where like some people probably don't listen to successful people at all. If they want to get motivated, they'll go for a run or whatever. Don't like to listen to successful people, but that works for us. Kind of going off what you said, that works for us, listening to successful people. That's what gets us motivated, and that's how we can get motivated. But you got to find your own thing. You got to find your own rhythm and things that will help you. So yeah, I get that for sure.
But at the same time, there's different ways that you can listen to successful people too. You can listen, you can go on YouTube and you can listen to success stories, or you can go on there and you can find stuff on these are the steps you need to do, depending on your personality type. Some people need it to be set out. Number 1, you're going to do this. Number 2, you're going to do this. Number 3. Listened to a really good book lately. It was called Atomic Habits, and it was really interesting because it went into a little bit more depth. Like a lot of people have problems sticking to a system.
Right.
All right. So this book talked about how, you can go into further depth and you can actually put negative things in there. Things that, if I don't do this, I'm going to have to do this. Or if I don't do this, I'm not going to accomplish this, and talking about self-talk and things like that. That's another, thing that works for me is self-talk. Telling myself, you can't lose 10 pounds if you don't do push-ups.
Right.
Where some people will say, you're doing awesome. You missed a day, but you're doing awesome. You're gonna get to your goal weight. But for some people that motivation never works. With other people it does. For me, saying, hey, you're never gonna get to your goal weight if you don't do those 10 push-ups today, or 20 push-ups, or whatever it is that you've set for yourself as a goal.
Right.
So
for sure, yeah. So you got to back to the same thing. You got to find your what makes you motivated.
Yeah. And that's the great thing about our society. It's all out there. You just have to look for it.
Yeah. I think also like when we got started, we did a couple like trial runs on, this, trying to make the microphone work, trying to see what works better. That kind of made me motivated. I'm like, I have brainstorms about like what we can talk about on here because we did the first like introduction or whatever. So I'm like, oh, now we can talk about this, that, or whatever. So yeah, cool. So motivation isn't the only thing you need, obviously. You need a bit of work ethic to go with your motivation. It's almost like coffee cream to have a good coffee or whatever. You need work ethic, motivation to be successful, in my opinion. One example of that is Elon Musk. Very smart guy, but there are much smarter people that work for him. But he's probably hardest working person in SpaceX or Tesla. That's what really makes him successful. And so my question for you is, what are some of the things that help back up your work ethic? So when you work pretty hard on the oil rig. So, when you wake up every day, what time do you wake up? Like 3 a.m., something like that? So when you wake up at 3 a.m., what's stopping you from just hitting the snooze button again and going back to work? What backs you up so you can, have that work ethic or whatever? Is it someone? Is it something? What is it?
It's kind of a mix of a few different things. My biggest, obviously, is my family.
Right.
If I don't go to work, if I don't keep that job, my family doesn't have their needs met. So, that's obviously my first thought when I have to get up in the morning. My second thought is I like to be recognized. I like, to go to work and have my work recognized and be successful in the position I'm in. So that kind of keeps me motivated. I like to be, the best employee. I'm not always the best employee, but that's kind of my goal, is to be the best employee that I have, and also to move forward in life. Obviously, I want nice stuff. I want to have money in the bank when I want it. I want to be set up for retirement when that comes. So a lot of those things keep me motivated. Those are kind of my base motivations. Obviously, there is other things that keep me motivated, but those are pretty much the base.
Yeah, for sure.
But it'd be interesting to hear your perspective on what keeps you motivated.
So what backs up like my work ethic and things like that, because I think work ethic doesn't even have to be like you just like work or anything. I think that's kind of how I thought about it before, but it's mostly just the motivation to give it your all and things like that. That's a work ethic. And I think what mine is this kind of like what you were talking about before, you have to do 10 push-ups to lose this amount or whatever. So when I wake up, I have to go to school or whatever, I'm like, I'm never going to achieve these goals if I can't get up just to go to school. Like, this is going to be so hard, starting my companies or doing whatever I want to do. This is going to be so hard. And if I can't get up in the morning to go to school or go to work, like, why am I even trying? Because, like, that's going to be such a tough thing to do. If I can't do this basic thing, like, there's no point in trying. So I have to train myself to get up to that point. So, being a dreamer, I've always been a dreamer my whole life. I think I remember you when I came to you at like 5 years old, I'm like, I want to go to the moon. Can I go to the moon or whatever the heck? So I think my dreams have gotten a little different. Now I want to go to Mars. Yeah. but yeah, it's like being a dreamer. I'm like, I have to get up to do these things, because if I don't, what's stopping me from just being this lazy when I get to those big goals? You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. I remember when I think you were about 5 or 6 years old, we bought you a Hot Wheels laptop. And you had it for about a week or two, and all of a sudden I walk into your room and you're there with a screwdriver taking it apart. And I'm like, what are you doing? And you said, I'm building a robot. So I was like, okay. Yeah. And I walked away, and I think that was one of the things that, we did right as parents, is that we encourage you guys to, just do stuff. And I mean, like, things are things, they can be replaced, but for you at that age to, all of a sudden just want to build a robot, you're like, hey, I got the pieces here, I'm just going to build a robot, like that. Yeah. Was, one of the choices we made was to not let things be, the most important thing, right. And we've always encouraged you guys that whatever that you wanted to do in life, you could do, right. You don't have to, just because, life throws you a curveball doesn't mean that you can't, do whatever it is you set your mind out to do. So yeah.
That's kind of also like one thing that's like a motivation towards work ethic thing, is that we had that background in, like, I said I want to be a pirate, and you're like, you can do that. Like, that's almost an unattainable thing these days unless you want to get arrested. But I could do that. I was like, I want to be a pirate. You can do it. I want to go to the moon. You can do it. So now that I'm like down to earth, I'm like, I just want to be business. I want to start my own business. You can do it. You know what I mean? It's in the back of my head. I can do it. So I think that's important too, is having that kind of like the background in you can do it. You know what I mean? Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. Background in you can do it. Sounds like a good book. Background in you can do it.
Yeah. But yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. Well, I'm going to ask you this question. What are the ways that you stop procrastination? Because we've talked about motivation, we've talked about goals and dreams and stuff. But a lot of times with that kind of stuff, you procrastinate. I mean, we even procrastinated with this podcast, Hey, we should do this. Yes, we should do this. And, it's one of those things that it's really hard in our busy lives now in our society for pretty much everyone, is to, actually sit down and get something done and not procrastinate. So how do you prevent yourself from procrastinating?
So procrastination, it's kind of the same thing. I have another one, but it's kind of the same thing that we talked about. It's like, if I don't get this done, I won't be able to do this. I have to meet this deadline. If it's for school and I have an assignment, I'm just like, I don't want to have to do it on Saturday. It's due on Sunday, so I'm just going to do it on Thursday or whatever it is. But one thing is, when we were procrastinating with this, I was just like, I'm gonna do some art for it. I'm gonna make the logo and stuff like that. And I developed that, Aos To Aos Podcast thing. And so getting started on the most fun part kind of gets me going, things like that. I guess I'm kind of going off here. The procrastination part.
Are you procrastinating?
I am kind of procrastinating right now. I'm trying to think about procrastination. So if I have to get things done, I'm just putting it off to the last minute. Being secure is my biggest thing. Like not having to worry about it. Because like I listened to interview with Jeff Bezos, and he said stress is completely like about like doing what you love and things like that almost. You can work super hard and love every minute of it, or you can not have a job and be super stressed about it. So having stress is my biggest motivation. Like I don't like stress at all. So I'll deal with it like right now. So that's my biggest thing about procrastination, is like I could work on all these other things I love and not be stressed about this one thing if I just get it out of the way. So put it like just knowing you're gonna like. Here's another thing too. I'll be like, I used to do it this way. I used to think I was a different person every day. I didn't think that, but I would think about it that way. I was like, yesterday me was a jerk because he didn't do his chores, and today me has to do them now. So I kind of do it that way too, where I'll be like, today me doesn't want to do math, but tomorrow me's gonna like me for it. So I'm just like, yeah, that'll help a little bit if today me does my assignment, or today me works on that thing I don't want to do for my business, because tomorrow me's going to thank me for it when he gets to go to bed early. You know what I mean? So that helps a lot. What about you?
Well, I think that I use a lot of the same kind of motivational things that you use as well. Like, if I, like with work, when I work in my side hustle, I don't want to do it. I mean, I'd rather, be at home. I'd rather, be taking time off to go and do fishing and things like that. But I know that if I don't accomplish what I need to do, then, like you say, 2 months down the road, I'm still going to be struggling in the same position I'm in. So
2 months away, you is going to hate you for doing that.
That's really a good way to look at it. I'm probably going to use that. So. Yeah. But, that's kind of, I kind of use the same things. And also, like, say, even around the house, at night, sometimes I don't feel like doing the dishes. But I do them because I know that I don't like to wake up to see dishes. Right. I don't like the smell, of, food in the house. When I wake up in the morning, I like, there's certain things that I like. Same with laundry. I don't want to have to wake up and, do 4 loads of laundry in a day. So if I do a load every second day, then, I stay on top of it. So I use all those kind of things to keep myself from procrastinating. With this podcast, I think it's hard because it's something new and it's something outside my comfort zone. Mm-hmm. So it took a long time to get to this point, but, I had to remind myself what was important. And, like a lot of people use YouTube as a side hustle. They want to, this is a way for them to make money. For me, this is a way for me to spend time with you. This is a way for me to express myself. This is a way for me to maybe encourage people, to follow their dreams, to do what they want to do. And maybe some of the things that we say, it's like we talked about earlier, you might watch 100 videos out there and one of them really touches you. So I'm hoping that maybe, something that we say in this video really rings true for someone and they become successful. Sure. So, those are kind of what I've used my, to stop procrastinating with this.
Yeah, for sure. That's also kind of a good, not really segue, but there's a good indication that you're going to like something. If you do it anyway, and you want to turn it into a business, that's great. Because if you do it without getting paid, it's a great thing you should start. Because we were talking about it. We always talked about finance and stuff like that and success. So that was a great indication that we should turn it into a podcast or something like that. So yeah, for sure. Yeah. Procrastination is kind of a big, motivation killer too. If you think about it, like procrastinating too much to a point where you're like, I was supposed to do that so long ago, kind of kills your motivation because you like, if you do it enough times, you're like, well, I always procrastinate. I never do that, so I just shouldn't do that in the first place or whatever it is. I know I did that. Like when I'm working out or whatever, I'm like procrastinate to the point where I'm just like, I never work out. If I just go to the gym, I'm going to procrastinate again. Why would I even try going to the gym? So I try to use that in a better way. Like I'll make sure to stop my procrastination so that I'll have more motivation to do these in the future. You know what I mean? If that makes any sense.
Yeah.
What is success and how do you get it? So what you think success is to you, also how would you achieve that? And like, what are the steps you can take to achieve it? Because we already talked about motivation, how to stop procrastinating. So what are the steps you can take to get to your point of success?
I think this is one of the areas where we're really going to differ, because my idea of success is more, having my needs met, being able to go to the store and buy something, having enough money in the account that I don't have to check it every time. It's also being able to retire on time. Right. I have procrastinated throughout my life, so I'm probably not going to be able to retire early, but I want to be able to retire on time. I don't want to be working into my 70s and, beyond that, like a lot of people in society we see nowadays. So my idea of success is just It's changed a lot over the years. I used to talk about, buying fancy cars and, going on vacations around the world and having multiple houses. And I think that unfortunately, because, I didn't have the proper motivation, I procrastinated, maybe didn't have the proper tools, or maybe just never found the right thing that, I squandered a lot of my time. So, now my perspective has changed and my ideas of success have changed as well. So that's, I think, but even at my age, I think that I can still be successful.
Right.
Now it's just a matter of being hyper focused, not, like at your age, you can afford to, have a little bit of money over here and a little bit of money over here and start this business and start another business. And you can kind of spread yourself out a little bit and experiment and find what really works for you. For me, I have to be hyper focused.
Right.
I've got my main job and, I put a certain percentage a month into my 401k and I'm watching that 401k, every 2 or 3 days, I'm checking it to make sure, okay, this investment's doing well, so I really have to have that focus,
right.
To make sure that I get to where I want to be in life. It also means that, I have to budget, that I don't just go out and spend my paycheck, every month, a certain amount goes into savings, a certain amount goes to paying off outstanding debt. I don't just go out and buy something right now because I want it.
Right.
I have to make sure I can afford it.
For sure.
So there's a lot of different aspects, and it's also, a lot of, I guess that's the same thing as what I was just talking about with self-discipline, making sure that, I'm doing all the right steps, and it kind of ties into my everyday routines as well, like getting up and getting motivated and doing my dishes and all that kind of stuff. When you're young, you can be carefree. You can kind of go and do whatever you want to do. But, as you get older, if you haven't had the proper focus, it's something that you have to, really do.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So, like, lots of security is what you're looking for, mostly in success and things like that. That makes a lot of sense. I think that also kind of speaks into like the different generations thing. I can be more carefree because my idea of success, I was listening, for me at least, I think the most important thing to understand about success is it's all about what you want. So you want more security, I might want something different. That's two different points of view in like the world of success, but they're both success. Someone who's making $100,000 a year and just gets to hang out with their kids, that's success. And Elon Musk might not be able to have that, but he's successful because he has $1 billion. Mm-hmm. It's just, two different, there's a lot of different ways of being successful, and it all just comes down to what you want to do. Me personally, I was listening or watching a video, Bill O'Leary, Shark Tank, that guy. He was talking about, I could walk out of here right now, never come back. No one would ever see me again, and I'd be just fine. And that is freedom. And that's really that's like kind of my idea of success. If I could walk out of any job, any place, and just be done for the rest of my life, retire right then and there, if I really wanted to, that's real freedom, and that's success to me. Like having the ability to just like not have to listen to these people saying I have to do this, or have to listen to, my boss saying I have to come into work at this time or whatever. That's real success to me, because I would have the freedom to just walk out of here if I really wanted to, just go on vacation for the rest of my life or something like that. That kind of freedom is what I view success as, for me personally. I think a lot of different people have a lot of different points of view. Like, you want more security. I'm sure you want to take vacations and get fancy cars still. Like, that's never going to go away for most people. Like, everyone wants to have these nice things, but you want more security. And I want to just have the ability. I think I'll even manifest more into wanting more security and things like that. And it's not like there's no want for security, but right now it's just getting to the point where I can just say, nope, done. And I'm not going to probably ever. I already thought about this. I think I'm probably not even going to retire. I'm just going to retire into something easier. Maybe doing like a podcast, maybe something like that, where it's like just super, super easy, like when I'm 65 or whatever. I don't think I'll ever retire, but having the ability to, if I really wanted to, just say, nope, I'm done. You know what I mean? That's real success to me. Like having the ability to not have to worry about where my next meal is coming from. So that's real success to me. For me, just personally. Yeah.
It's kind of interesting. I guess, goes back to the generational thing. I mean, a lot of the terms that we use nowadays and a lot of the ways we use to describe things and, I guess express ourselves is different.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that in a lot of ways that, that's a big key word is freedom.
Mm-hmm.
And, the way you described it, though, isn't exactly how I would have described it, but I mean, I think in a lot of ways that our perspectives are the same on it. Being able to, I guess for me, freedom is security.
Right.
But, security and freedom are two different things to you from what you described there. So
yeah, I don't think I described it perfectly either, because I mean, the security part of it, if I did ever walk out, you know what I mean? Like having the ability to be done, but also not have to worry. Like still having the security to go to the grocery store, like you said, and not have to worry about what your bank balance is. That is part of it as well. Mm-hmm. So like not being like, I'm done, but I have to like ration my money out or whatever. Mm-hmm. That's what success is to me. Being able to get to that point.
That's pretty interesting. So that kind of brings up another point that I think we wanted to talk about was retirement. Mm-hmm. So, for my generation, I mean, we're kind of the first generation that are looking at things like 401ks as being really significant because we're worried that, Social Security won't be there.
Right.
So it'd be interesting to hear your perspective on what you guys feel is going to be there when you retire. Do you still believe in Social Security? Do you think it's going to be there? Or do you think that, you're going to be on your own?
To be honest with you, with the Social Security thing, from what I understand, probably not going to be around for me. Especially, I don't know how it applies for me since I'm a dual citizen and stuff, but because I don't know too much about that. But what I think will really be there for me in the end is my investments personally, mm-hmm. like the different angel investments I've been into. Those things, the money that comes in from that is going to be what's really going to be there in the end. Because I mean, Social Security is great, but it's only going to be a certain amount. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. I know a lot of people that are on Social Security. Like not personally, I'm not friends with them. They're a lot older, but I know a lot of people that are on it. And it's not like they're like, oh, we're retired and we're like going on all sorts of vacations and we're like spending all this money or whatever like that. It's like a fixed budget. Like I can only spend this much at this time or whatever like that. That's probably not the case all the time, but that's at least the case with the people I know. And so even if I do get the Social Security and things like that, and that's going to be a good way for me to make money when I'm retired, I think that what's really going to be there the most and what's going to be most helpful in my lifetime is the things that I do right now, and the things that are like my online businesses, investments, anything like that is going to be what's really going to be there in the end.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, guys. I just want to say thank you for tuning in, and I hope you enjoyed the show. I know we covered a lot of subjects. In future episodes, we are going to drill down on these and talk about them in a lot more depth.
For sure. And also make sure to check out our social media. It's going to be linked in the description below. Don't forget to comment if you have an idea for a future episode or a future topic you want us to talk about. We're going to be uploading on Mondays, so check back weekly for some more content. And do not forget to like and subscribe.
And hit that bell notification so you see all our new uploads. Thanks for watching.
And we'll see you next time.